Hello and welcome to What Moves Us, the podcast where we ask what moves us, or more accurately, what's going to move us in future.
With the Rail Innovation Group's Johannah Randall and Liam Henderson, we look at debates, themes and decisions of the minute that will impact on the way we get about in the future.
Right, hi guys.
Hi Liam.
Hello Liam.
So there's three of us in the room today, which is quite unusual. We're in London and it is the 6th of July at 12:48 and we have just had our bi-monthly member call, which would discuss some interesting things, which we'll cover, I'm sure, in this podcast. I think the aim today is just have a quick catch-up so you all know what we've been doing. And I'll call on both of you in a minute to tell us what you've been doing. But yes, what have you been doing, Deb?
What have I been doing? Well, I've been doing quite a lot of work for the High Speed Rail Group. We've just had two really big kind of events that we were working towards for the most of this year. So it's alright if I speak about them because they're not Rail Innovation Group things.
What was innovative?
Well, what was innovative was, the High Speed Rail Group has got an apprentice network which we set up. I set up a couple of years ago, and we haven't really been able to do a massive amount with it because of COVID. But the idea of the of setting up the network was really to try and encourage collaboration, I suppose, between particularly main works contractors on the various JVs actually working on the project, but also sort of wider. So obviously the High Speed Rail Group's got quite a wide membership of companies kind of with an interest in building and designing high speed. So it was really interesting to see some of the, now we've actually managed to get the group together. There's about 80 apprentices on the network doing all sorts of different apprenticeships, and we've got some graduates on the network as well. And it's been interesting to see some of the kind of the softer outputs from that. For example, some of the different joint ventures working on HS2 have got apprenticeships very specific to HS2 called quality apprenticeships. So they're like the apprentices looking at kind of standards and that kind of thing on the project in their various companies. And it's quite nice because as a result of them all getting together at our event in May, several of the different apprentices from Balfour Beatty Vinci, Align JV, SCS, who are all quality apprentices, but have kind of formed a little informal sort of network of their own, just to talk about what approaches the different joint ventures take around the fact that they've all got these similar apprentices. So it was really nice to see that, because that kind of is exactly why we set the network up.
Yeah.
So that was really good. And we also got them to do a panel at our big annual conference in Birmingham a few weeks ago. We got the apprentices to do a panel, and it was quite a high level conference. We had like Andrew Stevenson spoke, and we had Peter Hendy from Network Rail, etc. So it's quite a big deal for them to actually have their own apprentice sort of panel. And
I'm curious because I didn't get to go to your conference, do you think that the audience members and the more senior people indulge the apprentices or actually listen to their viewpoints?
I think there's been quite a lot of, as always with these kind of things, it's a really difficult balance because we set the apprentice network up and it's a great thing to be able to talk about for our group because it sounds good. And we can kind of ask the apprentices to talk on our behalf and give that kind of perspective of a younger person earlier on in their career, which you don't hear a lot about, particularly in rails. As we all know, everyone in rail is really old. So,
including us.
Myself in that, sadly. So, but I think, so I have worked really hard to not sort of, because we have had sort of let's kind of roll out these apprentices at every opportunity. And I'm really, go to great lengths not to do that because it's really unfair apart from anything else because they're all really busy and, they need to, if they're going to give their time up, it needs to be of value to them, not of value to us as an industry group or, the industry generally. Although, of course, it's, it is great to show that face of, construction, rail, infrastructure, what have you. So short answer is I think there is some of that happening, but I think there are, for example, this is another informal kind of win, I suppose. I got an invite to a dinner which Atkins are doing, which is on the future of rail. So I said, well, can we have 2 places, please? And can, one of our members bring one of their apprentices? Because obviously if you're talking about the future of rail, you actually want some few people under 50 in the room, dare I say. So, and I know that people like, Rio are really good, they do their kind of innovation Trailblazer event, which is, where they encourage people to bring someone who's earlier on in their career and all that sort of thing. So we're certainly not the only ones doing that kind of thing, but it is, it does give us a pool of apprentices and grads to reach into, so it's an easier way of contacting, and we're going to do a big project with SCS for National Apprenticeship Week, which is February next year, I think. So, but yeah, so that's taken up quite a lot of my time.
Wonderful.
And also, I've been obviously giving a great deal of thought to the high-speed rail freight logistics work.
Oh, tell us what happened with that.
Well, as you all know, but I will say it because there might be people listening that don't know, we kicked off a piece of work last year looking at how we could bring logistics and rail into a place where they can actually be useful to each other, i.e. can we map sort of logistics routes onto rail and so we can bring parcels more sustainably, particularly into town centres, which, as everyone knows, is quite a challenge at the moment for logistics companies, with all of the kind of not just congestion, pollution, etc. So we kicked off with a thought piece which we pulled together from across our sort of membership. When I say we, I'm talking about the Rail Innovation Group now. And then we held a round table session where we actually managed to get some logistics people around the table, which is something that, although there is quite a lot happening in rail to try and see how this might be better sort of delivered in terms of getting parcels onto trains essentially. It always felt like there was never any logistics people in the conversations. I mean, DFT have run webinars, which I've been on, all that kind of thing, but it always seemed like it was rail people talking to themselves about how important it was. And I'm not disrespecting DFT when I say that. I think it's quite difficult for certain sectors to come together, and especially if there's a lot of commercial sensitivities around logistics, of course. But anyway, we just managed to stalk people on LinkedIn, basically, which worked very well. And we've got, we've got a representative from Amazon, DPD, DHL, Royal Mail Group. So it was a really interesting set of discussions which we had just before Christmas, where we did sort of unpick some of the challenges, but we then felt like we needed to get to the next sort of point, which was to sort of get into more detail around some of those. So we're now looking at doing that, and we're thinking about doing some sort of a hackathon event. The University of Birmingham are quite interested in partnering up, so I've spoken to colleagues there and they are sort of on board. DPD are quite interested in supporting us specifically on this, so that's really, really exciting. So I think we're going to do some kind of a week long, I know this sounds quite,
a lot.
But we have talked about the possibility of doing like a week-long project whereby we perhaps kick off with a face-to-face thing at the beginning of the week, where we get some people to kind of speak, maybe get some good practice. DPD of just piloting a really good rail and logistics project in Germany, and they think it might be possible to perhaps bring a couple of people over from who are leading on that to talk at that session, which would be brilliant.
Will they come as cargo?
Pardon?
Will they come as cargo?
Yeah, they would come in a box. Yeah, on a Eurostar. Yeah, as a test. Hopefully with some holes in it so they can breathe. So yes, so that's quite exciting. I mean, because obviously we know that we've got a lot to learn from Europe. are we allowed to still say that? But it's true. So that would be
But they're
quite
still
good.
our friends, Debs.
They are our friends, and you know, I think it's always really been, if you're going to get people to think about the sort of challenges, it's quite good to get somebody who's a bit further ahead on having some success in a project to talk. And to be honest, hopefully the person from the Chief Network Planning and Optimisation Officer, who we've been connected up with. But then I think our sort of day plan is that we then have like a series of workshops throughout the rest of the week, which could just be online, you know, they don't have to be in the room, where we've got particular people talking about very particular challenges that we have already kind of worked out and can sort of play back at the end. So then we'll get people to kind of have those workshops, and then the day 5 bit of the day, or day whatever, would be those workshops playing back their kind of discussions and findings to a kind of panel of people, which, you know, our sort of A-list for that would be someone like maybe Keith Williams of the Williams-Shapps report, you know, what have you, because I would imagine he would be quite interested in, having been chairman of Royal Mail and John Lewis.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He's got that kind of rail logistics kind of connection. Might be a little bit tenuous, but anyway, I don't think it is actually. I think he would be really good. Whether we get him or not, who knows? DPD CEO is kind of a possibility. Possibly someone from Eurostar. I mean, if we could get Jax Damas, that would be amazing. And obviously we've got HS1 on board, so they would be really useful in sort of helping us with that. There's the freight team lead at the GBR transition team, because obviously we'd have to have them on board. There's a few other people, Logistics UK probably. Just have a sort of panel of interested senior people that we could play that back to, and obviously an audience as well. Yeah. So that's the sort of plan anyway. So that's quite exciting. And if it's going to happen, it's probably going to happen in December, because that's the sort of timetable that the University of Birmingham are keen on.
Just before Christmas again?
Just before Christmas.
Just before Christmas.
Yes.
When all the logistics people are very busy.
I was going to say, when logistics becomes very important.
Yes, well, it would have to be early December to get anyone sort of there probably, but I don't know if we want, you know, we don't necessarily need a load of kind of senior people to be in the workshops. Well, I think we need people that are kind of open-minded thinkers.
Sounds like a really interesting event though.
Yeah, I think so. I think it could be really good. So that's the plan. I'll probably stop talking now, shall I? I've been talking for 12 minutes 37 seconds.
You have, and I'm just very subtly going to move the recorder to charge it whilst I then ask Johannah what she's doing.
Oh God, I forgot what I was doing. I was so busy listening. I was so busy listening to Deb that I forgot what I'd been doing, because I was thinking of all the sorts of things I had been doing, and completely went off on a tangent. So what have I been doing? So I have been doing a huge amount of different things and networking and that. So I've been doing lots of things with Ria. And my voice was sort of like going up and down there.
You went to the Trailblazers, didn't you?
I did go to the Trailblazers.
Oh, how was it?
It was a really good event, and I think one thing I probably noticed, and I don't know whether this is kind of a post-pandemic thing, but I think there was certainly a lot more younger people in the room or in the space, because obviously it's at the Oval, so it's an open air space. And a lot of different people, so met lots of interesting people that are coming into the industry. And obviously the whole thing about the Trailblazers is that somebody senior from the organisation comes, but they bring a younger friend, and that certainly seems to be taking off. So yes, I had a good evening there, and also in the pub afterwards too. So that was a good night had by all, I think. And as ever, Lorraine Martins was there, and always full of inspiration. So it's always now, because she's left Network Rail and now works for Nichols Group. So always good to hear her experiences from construction and rail. But also been doing lots of stuff with Ria, just sort of like some consultation stuff on Great British Railways. particularly around sort of like the whole branding and communications and all of that sort of thing, and all the cultural change and that. And
there's going to be some cultural changes.
Yes, I was one of the challengers for the cultural workstream.
Remove the
You'd love to see the behaviours that I said were very important.
I think
petulance.
and that's the interesting thing about the whole cultural change, because I've done 2 pieces of work now on the whole cultural piece, because one is part of the overall consultation for GBR with the task force, but also with one of the organisations I work with, Fuel Communications, we did a workshop at the RIA Innovation Conference on the cultural change, and we had different personas that we identified within, and we worked with the delegates to come up with sort of like some of the things that that culture needs to point to and how you change the culture and that. But I'm wordless, because nobody really knows how to change it, and I think, and I'm going to mention the dreaded strike twice as well. So part of that challenge is that you've got this disconnect, haven't you, between the people that are actually leading the change and the people that will be responsible for delivering the change, and I think that's part of the tension of why we've got industrial relations problems, because nobody's talking to the people on the front line about what's happening. And I think what's interesting, because I work with various organisations within this, nobody in the rail industry knows what's happening. Somebody I worked with went to a briefing yesterday, and they just said to me, that
they still don't know what's happening.
They still don't know what's happening, and they said it was just like they were patting themselves on the back for what a great job we've done in the last 12 months, but still but nothing has changed. Nothing is going to change. So that's sort of like one of the things that I've been working on. But as a result of breaking news, as a result of the work I've been doing through this, is that I've been meeting and engaging with lots of people I wouldn't normally meet, including the head of transport for Google, and they've confirmed they will host the Rail Innovation Group at their offices at King's Cross. So we've got that to plan for the autumn now. So that is going to be really exciting for us and our members for the autumn, probably sometime after Inner Trends and before our December.
Heard it here first.
Hooray! Hooray!
So that's
hooray for Google.
So that's the really interesting breaking news, and I've also been immersing myself in all things Scotland now that I live in Scotland. So I've been involved in Women in Rail Steering Committee, and that's my second mention for the strike, because we were due to hold an event on one of the strike days. And we were having Jenny Gilruth, the Transport Minister, as the keynote speaker for a panel event all about the future of diversity in rail and why it's key to the success of rail that we should have diversity. So that was cancelled, and at the moment, fingers crossed, we have that rearranged for the 13th of September in Glasgow. So that will hopefully go up again soon. So we have other speakers. So I know some people will have heard of Heather Moore, who is a driver for Freightliner, and also a member of Women in Rail Scotland as well. So she was one of our panellists, and we had Joanne Maguire, who is the new COO for ScotRail as well. So we had sort of like a really good panellists, and Shona Clive, who is part of the engineering cluster. So some really good women speakers. I'm really looking forward to that event going ahead in the autumn now.
And what do we think about Scottish independence rearing its head?
Controversial. We have to go to the politics.
Well, let's apply it to a rail thing.
Well, it is. I mean,
you did notice that the HQs, the short list of HQs,
not one of them was in Scotland
or Wales or Northern Ireland.
Well, when they got the golden,
GB
was just dropped from HS2 very subtly.
That's the bit
weirdly
that
at the same time as the Prime Minister won his vote of no confidence, which was an interesting, completely random connection with the fact that the 1922 chairman is actually the golden links in his constituency. But I'm sure that was just a complete coincidence.
I'm sure it was, because we're not cynical, are we?
No, other than a complete coincidence. But that does have really big implications, that link being dropped with no other
But do you think
no other way of getting enough trains onto that line to get to Scotland? So again, the aspirations of a 3-hour journey time to Scotland, or around 3 hours, has taken a bit of a hit.
But it's gone. I'm going to let you speak first, Liam.
it was just a question? Which could be looked at in a positive way. HS2 was presented originally as a Y-shaped network, and that was it. And then obviously what's been discovered over the last year is it's actually flexible. So yes, that link has gone, yes, the East Midlands log of it has gone, but does it not open the door to, we can tweak it now, we're allowed to influence what happens in future? And it might be a more incremental approach, but it means that we can respond.
Yeah, I agree. I think an incremental approach is fine, and in some ways it's possible to bring benefits much earlier. Some of those benefits to those places on the eastern leg are going to be in like 2045 or something. Do you know what I mean? So I'm all for that, but what needs to happen quickly really is that some of those alternatives, some of those connections need to be worked out and progressed. And there's loads of stuff around electrification, like for example up to Yorkshire and all that, which is, there's hardly any electrification around Sheffield, I don't think.
But all of that stuff over whether it's connectivity to Scotland, whether it's more electrification, that it's it really sort of like beggars belief in the context of the wider environmental, carbon neutral, carbon zero questions, isn't it? Because particularly with war in Ukraine as well now, and not being able to get gas and oil now because I heard something yesterday that they're opening up coal mines again in Germany, and we're going to make similar decisions here. So our policy in terms of becoming carbon zero by 2050 just is completely misaligned, because I'm coming up to my year anniversary of being in Scotland.
Wow.
And I've travelled every way possible that you can between London and Scotland over the last year. So I've driven, I've done bus.
Air balloon?
I have not done air balloon. Is it possible?
No,
if it was, I would give it a go. But I've done car, bus, the sleeper, daytime train, and I have flown. And out of and I've graded them all. I should do a little piece on it, shouldn't I? I've graded them all. And once you put in price, time, convenience, flying is my preferred method. I've only done it once because I do generally get the daytime train, but flying was just like the most convenient, and it's just it was just so easy because I can drive straight into the airport. It takes me just over an hour. I can pre-book my car parking. I can do priority boarding through through security and everything, and I can be sat on the plane within 2.5 hours of leaving home. I'm not. If I go by train, I still haven't even reached Edinburgh in 2.5 hours. And that's sort of like that's sort of.
That's because flying is subsidised, isn't it? Essentially.
Well, it is. But you see, that's why I say policy is just so misaligned.
Exactly.
Why do we subsidise roads and air, which are like the biggest polluters, but we don't. But we can't subsidise. It's like all about treasury, putting pressure on. Saying we've got to be more efficient. I'm not saying we shouldn't be more efficient, but Why is it that it's all about subsidy rather than actually promoting better behaviours?
Also, the whole levelling up thing, government agenda, which is I know nobody would ever want to say it, but it's about tackling inequality. That's essentially, isn't it? That's the precious little ever mentioned. There certainly wasn't in the levelling up white paper about transport actually, and transport's such a driver, around business, all sorts of things, health, inequality, all those things are,
and this will be the same for parts of rural England and Wales as well, is that because the other thing that I've been involved with in the Scottish context is I've been working with the Scottish Rural and Islands Transport Community, which is what do they call them? A CIC. What does CIC stand for?
Community Interest Corporation.
That's it. Yeah. So I've been working with them, and they've been doing a consultation with the Scottish Government on rural transport issues. And it's just gone into Scottish Government this week. And listening to sort of like some of the stories of people, it's unbelievable, if you've got a hospital appointment, sometimes it's a 3-day round trip for people in rural Scotland, So in the context of when you sort of like think about HS2 and actually connectivity into London for most people probably, or anywhere into England, probably isn't that important from a rural context in Scotland, because the actual connectivity within Scotland itself needs to be improved, and not just from rail, but from a whole public transport point of view, because I don't think the stories of how bad some of the ferries have been, and how sometimes, because I remember listening when we were doing the consultation, listening to a chap who said when you have to go somewhere and you live on an island, your first question is not how do I do the journey? I'll just go on the transport planner and find out the times, buy my ticket, etc. It's will it run, and what contingencies do I need to put in place? Because if you don't put enough contingencies in, you're not going anywhere.
Or you're not getting home.
And obviously within the context of I'm going to mention it a third time, the strikes, because the strikes have been going on a lot longer in Scotland than they have in the rest of the UK, because there's different issues going on, and they're working to rules. So this emergency timetable's been in since May, and quite often you can go somewhere but you can't get back because the train service finishes at 6 o'clock.
Which is inevitably just pushing everyone back into their cars, because within reason you can always rely on your car. You can get in it and get where you want to go, can't you? Whether you get stuck in traffic or not, at least you're going to get there at some point and get home. So that's problematic, isn't it? And I think to your point, Liam, I'm all for being positive and not not moaning on about the fact that they've got cabs and all that kind of thing on HS2. Fine. But I think we are a little bit in danger of it's a bit like I read something about Euston the other day, I can't remember what it was, in the new civil engineering or something.
It was,
to say, Euston Station was going to be a world leading station, and it's now being described as an alright station. Functional station when it gets built. Well, there does come a time when you have to sort of revisit the business case for doing all this stuff in the first place. You can't keep on picking everything until it's just mediocre, can you?
The people who worked on St Pancras are really regretting spending that money making St Pancras a world-class station.
Yeah, exactly. But you think over the next decade we've got some serious issues around the economics here. Like cost of living crisis, not looking, inflation. I don't know.
But you see,
aside from the politics and the fact that you've just lost the Chancellor, who's trying to be sensible about money, and you've now got a Chancellor just come into place who is talking about tax cuts. Yeah. Inevitably, investment is going to be hard to get, I would imagine.
But I'm just going full circle. The very first time we did a podcast, we were in Soho, and Johannah and I talked about the Elizabeth line, Crossrail as it was then, being delayed, and it was penalising people who needed level access.
Yeah.
We're now recording this summer 22, the Elizabeth line is open, and it's fabulous.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting, the fact that you can see that they didn't scrimp on loads of the infrastructure, because it's absolutely enormous.
Yeah.
And it's completely different to the tube.
Yeah.
And I am stunned how it's got through this entire delivery without being engineered down to a low quality.
Because they pushed some of the cost into the city, didn't they? So they made
it was a third,
business.
Third,
so maybe that was part of it. So they were maybe more conscious of the user needs that needed to be delivered. And when you concentrate on the user need, you don't engineer down. And sort of like some of those principles that are in Crossrail, I think they have been carried over into HS2. But of course, it's a lot harder because HS2. Isn't TfL sponsored, it's DfT sponsored, who are always, reliant on the current minister of the day supporting the scheme and still, and Treasury, whereas Crossrail, their money was ring fenced, even though they had to go back for more money. It was, because it had gone through so much that they couldn't not spend the money, because it would just, the whole project would then be mothballed until somebody said, well, we should revive it, and then it would just cost more and more. So it was almost face saving, wasn't it, with Crossrail? But I would argue, though, on the whole investment, and the cost of living, and the cutbacks and that, is that when you're facing a crisis like this is actually the time when you need, true vision, and you need to invest more in your infrastructure, because otherwise it just, you just go into a spiral of decline, don't you?
Absolutely.
Because I think what's interesting about the engagement with RIA, and something that Darren Kaplan mentioned at Trailblazers, and also at an event that I was at this week on enterprise models in construction, and about how that develops efficiency, is that we are now up to 92% of pre-pandemic levels of people travelling on rail. And that's a really positive message. But what
leisure travel
but that's what nobody has really got their head around, and everyone's talking about it, but nobody's innovating around what this means, is that people's travel patterns have changed, and that's what we need to be reacting to. There seems to be some sort of hope that
it'll go back to the way it was.
It will, and that's so while so going back to what people in culture change and what people are talking to, you've got people saying, yes, we recognise there's a change, but nobody's worked out how we're going to change our behaviour and change the way we deliver rail services and that. Because one attempt has been made with the flexi season tickets, but to be honest, I'm going to say it, it's a rubbish product. It is an absolutely rubbish product.
It doesn't save you.
No, nothing at all.
Exactly. It's spin.
Yeah.
It's flexi wash.
Right. We've been talking a long time. So what's
We
coming
can
up?
have lunch now, please.
We can go and have lunch, but what's coming up? We've got an event on the 20th of July.
Yes.
An in-person event.
Yes.
We did have lots of Munch and Learns. We learnt a lot at Munch and Learns this springtime. They've been very successful. You can watch them all on YouTube. But coming up, we have a workstream. Tell us about our workstream.
What, the high-speed rail and freight workstream?
No, you told us about that before.
Which other workstream have we got?
Innovation.
A new one, innovation one.
Sorry, yes.
Da, 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 da.
What we are thinking about doing, and we just mooted it on our Munch and Learn earlier on today, is we are thinking that what we might want to do is look at the companies, small companies, startups, etc., that receive funding from various places that they receive funding from, so Innovate UK, etc., 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 and see if we can do some kind of some more in-depth work, probably through the medium of interviews, to try and work out why some of them have successfully brought products to a sort of commercially viable place within the market, and why others kind of get through the funding end of the project, and then somehow or other don't make it into market. So we want to look at things like what are the issues, to see if there are any sort of trends, I suppose, within those discussions. So is it that there's loads of moving objectives? Is it that there's cultural issues in rail? Is it that there's a transition between how to navigate the end of the project and get to the kind of commercial procurement stage? Is it just that commercial procurement is too hard and people can't do it even though they've had the money to get the project to market? All those kind of things. Is the commercialisation process too hard? So the hope is that we might be able to do that research with some of the companies, as I said, that received the funding, and see, highlight those trends and sort of play them back to the people that give the money out. To in a positive way, to say, look, these are, because obviously it's public money, and it would be good to, in terms of sort of efficiency and all of that kind of thing, if we could have helped to kind of pick up on some of those things.
Yes, and Johanna, you did a very quick bit of research online.
Oh, sorry, I switched off there.
Oh, sorry. What did you find online when you searched?
Right, so what I found online was that very helpfully that you can look at all the research that has been done under Innovate UK grants. So the information is open data, and there's been a mixture of a lot of money has been spent, but on the quick and dirty research that I looked at, I couldn't find much that had actually found its way into the rail system, and also a lot of it was repeated. So so there was various projects using LiDAR in various ways, lots of ones looking at passenger movements around stations and things. So there doesn't seem, so I don't know whether it's something in the markers that they use or the evaluators for research, but there doesn't seem to be any sense check of, have we done this before?
Yes. And also somebody said, hang on, I'm just opening up my notebook again because I hopefully shut it in the hope that I'm going to go for lunch soon. Not that I don't love doing podcasts, but you know, I am quite hungry. But there was something that I made a note of in the conversations that we had on the Munch and Learn, where somebody said actually it's also about combining selected tech ideas. You know, should there be a mechanism for doing that? You know.
Yes.
Yes, there should. That's my simple answer. But yeah, so our research might also unpick whether there might be a mechanism to do that.
And also, as I said, I know DfT did do some research on it, but as I am not aware that the research has been published.
No.
Well, you know some friends, find us the research. Challenge you. Right. Thanks, guys. Let's go for lunch.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of What Moves Us. We hope we moved you. For more episodes, you'll definitely want to subscribe to our channel.
Until next time.